Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts between Termina's and Orion Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome our friends watching from Oxford Kiwi Television and also those watching on YouTube. Very interesting. Of course, I'm testing out this new mic here. Of course, so it's kind of odd that you don't see me with my other microphone normally. So we got a lot to cover today. I mean, the big news is Dan Fife stepping down as Clarkson athletic director. And then you look at and then of course, who would be next in line to replace Fife, and is he going to coach boys basketball? I have that answer for you. And then of course, we got an interesting debate topic, which was approved by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, the co-op teams, of course, where teams can merge together. Does that apply to other school districts? So we'll find out what that will go. And also, we got my top 10 based on individual, based on teams and success, and also we'll preview the regionals for the coming up this weekend for the OA teams and what are their chances at the regionals in at North Farmington, South Lyon East, Warren Mott, and also at Orion. So those are the four we're going to cover. So this week's episode of OA Now. Let's look at here. Let's look at the top 10. Of course, I released on my blog Inside the OA at Sammy Taramina at blogspot.com. My top 10 teams. Let's look at softball first. I mean, when you look at softball, there's pretty much a clear divide of whom is very good and who is not very good. It's basically if you are 14 mile basically north, and who had the best chance to be very solid. When I wrote these rankings down, I thought personally that I look at how their team is balanced and how if they have any type of competitive like atmosphere, competitive balance. And when I look at the top 10 based on there, I would have to give Lake Orion probably. I think when you look at Lake Orion, I think the Dragons are the most complete team in softball right now. One, they're ranked in the state. Two, they have a couple good pitchers. They have led by their ace Sierra Gonzalez. They developed some hitting this year, which has been huge. When you look at the development of Shelby Mishak, I like Cassidy Carson, what she's been doing. Of course, the emergence of Tessa Noose, Peyton Shadiah as two freshmen, I think is going to make some big impacts, not only on the diamond, but also in the girls' basketball court, to go along with Manny Novak. But you look at this Lake Orion team, they've got speed, they're athletic, they love having fun with each other. I've noticed that. And you look at Lake Orion, this is a team that really likes to be loose, and you got to give credit to Coach Joe Waitera for what he's done with his team over at Orion. Nobody expected Orion to be where they're at, to be as good as they were, especially the last 2 years where they've had a lot of hard hitters. A lot of hitters have gone to big-time schools. And now you're replacing virtually with a young lineup, and this young lineup has delivered. A lot of teams are fearful of Shelby Mishak because of her hitting. I think when you look at this team, I think Lake Orion's a team that can really go far into the playoffs. I think, and they have played a team like Macomb Dakota and beaten Macomb Dakota. So I think this Dragon team could be a surprise entrant, maybe, possibly, not thinking Battle Creek yet, because for Orion, their ride would have to go through Clarkston. Of course, Clarkston has been doing well recently, but I just do not trust their pitching staff. I can't trust. I mean, last year, when you look at the Wolves, they had two very good pitchers, and Candace Kitchen and Madeline Madej. those two girls now moved on, and now they bring in two freshman pitchers. When they played Troy, they almost got rocked. They did get rocked. They gave up at least 6 runs against Troy. Troy's a team that's down, in my opinion. But when you look at Clarkston, their hitting has to carry them in games. Of course, they're led by their Michigan-bound senior catcher, Abby Scavers. And then you have an emerging player, Madeline Beck. Madeline Beck is starting to play better. She's actually, if I had to do a most improved player or a breakout player, I think it's Madeline Beck. Not only for what she's done on the diamond, but also on the hardwood, because nobody expected Madeline Beck to be who she was today. And now she's emerged as perhaps one of Clarkson's top reliable defenders, and also on the hardwood, one of Clarkston's. She's going to have to do a lot more than she did on the basketball court, because you do have Lukenbach and Nicholson. You do have a big front line, but you need to develop shooting. I think she'll give you that for Coach Christine Rogers. But on the softball diamond, Beck has done a magnificent job as a defender, and of course as an offensive presence. The question that I have with Clarkson is, if you get in a pitcher's duel, that's not a good thing for the Wolves, and it will show if they get into a pitcher's duel, because I just don't think if you get into a pitcher's duel with Clarkson. If you get into a hitter's duel, you got to have a good enough hitting team to match up with Clarkson. And I believe Lake Orion's got that. But with Clarkson, they'll out-hit you. That is the strength of their team, is they are going to out-hit you. And then you look at a team like North Farmington. I think clearly it's the best team in the South. North Farmington, of course, they're led by the Cherney sisters. Alexa Cherney, Samantha Cherney. Both of them can interchange and pitch, and the other one can play first base. But when they hit, they're their best players. They're their best impact players. Who else has North Farmington got besides Cherney? Who else? When you look at North Farmington. If the problem with North Farmington is going to be, is they got a powerhouse team in their district named Farmington Hills Mercy. And Mercy is one of the top teams in the state, which is going to be problematic as we go later in the year. It is going to be problematic. A team like Troy Athens, of course, I think they're benefiting from playing in the white. They're not a bad team at all, but if they play against teams like Orion, Clarkston, they virtually get beaten up. I don't think Troy Athens is as good as people think, but they're solid enough to be good. And then you look at, Oxford's a team that's very interesting. They match up well against anybody not named Lake Orion or Clarkson, because Oxford seems to have a lot of problems with those two teams. They do match up well with anybody else. And I think they will be a force. They will be a player. I like this Oxford team that they like. I like them a lot. A team I really think should not be where they're at is Bloomfield Hills. I read in the other day that Bloomfield Hills put up 21 runs in one game and 20 in the other game against Southfield Lathrop. What are you doing? Just running these girls over. What are they doing? My God, it was terrible. It was terrible. You know, that to me tells me Bloomfield Hills should not be in the white division, in the blue division. They should be either in the white division or in the red division. Stony Creek's had a nice year under their new manager. Rochester, Adams, but they made my top 10 list. Troy, of course, is a team that really has struggled. But Troy manages to be competitive, and I expect Troy to be there in the end. I do expect them to be there in the end. Baseball is interesting because when you look at baseball, baseball is a team. Baseball is very unique because you look at them. I think the best team still is Adams, because when you look at how Adams is struggling a little bit, but Adams has managed to get into pitching duels. They managed to win those games. I like Farmington a lot in baseball. They're a team that doesn't get a lot of hype, doesn't get a lot of mention, but they're not a bad team. Now, people are going to complain to me in the blog, why didn't put Southfield Lathrop on there? Well, Lathrop's a good team, yes, but I'm curious to see how they would do against some of the powers, like an Orion, or an Clarkston, or an Adams, or I want to see Lathrop. I know they're going to merge next year with Southfield, but I want to see how they do against some big-time schools. And then I can consider them. I was very close to either between Stony Creek or Southfield Lathrop, and I put Stony Creek on there. Orion, I think, is starting to get their act together a little bit. When you look at the Dragons, division title's out of reach now. I think that's going to be Adams' title to lose. But when you look at Orion, I think that they're a wild card here. It's kind of odd as well that they're not in the pre-district. That's kind of odd when I found out the district draw. Orion not in the baseball pre-district. It's a good thing for them. Avondale's a team I think to keep an eye on as we head into the districts. They're solid. They're going to be a good team. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think, though, when you look at Avondale, it depends on what they have. Of course, they're the only school in baseball that has lights in the OAA. I think they may be one of the few only schools in Oakland County to have lights. But it's interesting to see how Avondale is. Troy Athens is another solid team to keep an eye on. And then you have Bloomfield Hills, who I think could be dangerous. And you have Groves, who I think is going to be dangerous, despite that getting a new manager. We'll see what happens in baseball. But it's very interesting. I still think Adams is probably the best chance the OAA has of going deep into the playoffs. Nobody expected Troy Athens to go that far as they did. But baseball's a funny game too. Baseball's a funny game. Girls soccer. When you look at girls soccer, I think Troy Athens is still the best team. But I think North Farmington's starting to get a lot of emergence because of Carly Cummings. Carly Cummings is an interesting player. One of North Farmington's best players. Yes, she's a good player. And she's also not a bad player in the hardwood either. She plays basketball. But what she's done for 4 years at North Farmington and that team, nobody expected North Farmington to surprise the way they are. Trying to contend for a red title. They did, however, play Troy Athens tough, and they lost that one tough. But you got to give credit to where credit's due. Basically, at the end of the day, I think when you look at it here, I think Troy Athens is a shot. Stony Creek is a shot. North Farmington, Adams is an outside shot, but North Farmington, I think, is a team. They could make a surprise run. Who knows? When you look at the area in Middle Michigan, in Middle Oakland County, probably the couple teams that do concern me there is Novi, Northville. They could give North some problems. And then you look at who I think the best team could be. Troy Athens, for them, they're going to have to go east. And then, of course, they're going to have to deal with the likes of Grand Blanc, possibly. So that's very interesting there in girls soccer. I ranked Rochester there. I think Rochester, they would have been a much better team had they had Zoe Schultz. But Zoe Schultz tore ACL and MCL, made her miss the entire basketball season. But it's very interesting to say the least with her and her injuries. But when I look at of course the when I look at girls soccer, Bloomfield Hills has made a lot of noise. You look at Clarkson's a team that can be interesting, but Berkeley, for some reason I like Berkeley for some reason. I really do. They could surprise some people. They really could. Lacrosse, boys lacrosse. I think when you look at it here, it's going to come down. I think you got in that big, massive regional. Now, a lot of people say you can't touch Birmingham Brother Rice. That I don't think that Orion or Clarkson give them a game. I think Orion or Clarkson could give Birmingham Brother Rice a game. Now, yeah, Birmingham Brother Rice is one of the best teams in the state. But you look at Orion Clarkson. I know Clarkson lost another shot at Orion. I mean, both Orion and Clarkson have double byes in the lacrosse regional. So it's very interesting how that draw came out. This is the first time that they actually have done bracket seeding. Very interesting there. I'll show everybody the link on the inside the OAA blog later in the week how that draw came out. Lake Orion, I know, got a number 2 seed. Clarkson got a number 3 seed. But we'll look at that regional when we preview the lacrosse for boys. But when you look at teams, I think Lake Orion clearly, I think, is the best team right now in lacrosse because they've gotten some wins over Bloomfield Hills, Clarkston, Birmingham Unified. But they're all solid teams, too. They're all great teams. And you look at this Dragon team, this has been a 3-year project for them. Clarkson this year started to develop and get back to basics with them. So with Clarkson, really, the Wolves are a team that can definitely do some damage. But I don't still think Clarkson's a consistent team right now. I really don't. Stony Creek, I thought who they were until they ran to Orion. Got whooped 15-1. Oxford, they're a team that's going to be all right. West Bloomfield's a team that's all right. Adams, same thing with them. Birmingham Unified, the Bulldogs, very interesting team to look at. I mean, they're not bad as well. But when you look at those type of teams, it's interesting. To say the least, it's very, very interesting. Okay, now, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Dan Fife. We're going to talk about the Dan Fife resignation as athletic director and why Clarkson is one of the top AD schools. And also we've got the co-op. The co-op teams approved by the MHSAA here on OAA Now.
I'm Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard and former Red Wing great Joey Koser reminding you to follow the rules regarding boater safety. Always operate at safe speeds, avoid alcohol, and wear a life jacket. Don't let a great day on the water be ruined by bad decisions.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taormina here. Of course, one of the top stories around the league is at Clarkston. Dan Fife stepping down as athletic director, but will stay on as boys basketball coach. This was a move in the making that kind of really wasn't a surprise to a lot of people, because for a long time it's been known that Fife would step down as athletic director at Clarkston to focus on boys basketball duties. And when you look at it here, he's been doing this an awful long time at Clarkston, and he's made Clarkston into one of the top athletic programs, not only in the entire league, but also in the state. But he is going to stay on as boys basketball coach, and that is very interesting because when you look at Fife, he's coached boys basketball for 34 years. This year will be his 35th year coaching. He was an athletic director at Clarkson for 20 years. So when you look at how that's going to change, it's going to change some. Now, I don't know if Clarkson has found a successor yet to replace Fife, but it'll pretty much, I think it's going to be in-house who Clarkson gets. And, of course, when you look at athletic directoring at a big-time school, when you look at the likes of Clarkston, Lake Orion, Oxford, I think are the three best jobs because when you look at, you control your middle school scheduling, you control the high school scheduling. There's a lot of benefits if you are an AD at a big school. Whereas I know at the Troy School District you have the two ADs there at the school, and then you have a pursuing AD who overrides like both those two schools. So it's kind of like a luxury to have when you have that quest for an AD. But Fife's accomplishments, of course, as AD was really legendary. He's won 2 state titles in football at Clarkston. He's won 2 state titles in football. He's made impacts in baseball. Made some strides in basketball. Of course, basketball has been very much legendary. Could this winter be the year for Clarkston? And it very well could be. When you look at Lawyer's a junior, Alderson's a junior, C.J. Anderson has started to emerge. C.J. Robinson, my bad, has emerged as a go-to shooting guard, very good defender. They still are going to need to find at least an interior big who can at least create some impact. But when you look at Clarkson, this could be a team that could really do some damage heading into next winter. Now, I'm not sure how the schedule is set up. They're non-conference, but when you look at, I think it'll be a tough non-conference but when you look at the teams that are, I don't know if there are a lot of teams right now wanting to play Clarkson because they're that scary. When you look at the Wolves, I don't know how also that's going to impact June because when you look at in June, I really think that I think the MHA is going to really want to look at maybe splitting Clarkson, Dakota up, possibly sending Clarkson more north, maybe sending Dakota more east, but it's interesting. But with Fife's legacy, what he did at Clarkson was absolutely incredible. He's done a lot of positive in his 20 years as AD, and now he's going into the sunset, just focusing on coaching boys basketball, and it's very interesting because I think what Fife's going to do is probably coach maybe another 2-3 more years before giving the reins, I think, to probably the coach in waiting I call is Tim Wasilic. Of course, Wasilic coached girls basketball at Clarkston. He was on the boys staff last season. He'll be on it this year. I think when you look at the Wolves, I think Clarkson's in a good place right now. I really do. But the question is, when Fife does leave, how will the impact of the program be? But when you look at so many other coaches that came back into the fold, you look at Jim Manzo at Orion, Steve Laidlaw at Oxford, Tim Morton at Avondale. It kind of reminds me of, it's interesting, to see all these coaches back in the fold coaching basketball. Very interesting. Now, we haven't heard about the coaching vacancies as much at Oak Park, Pontiac, or those two areas have been very, and also at Berkeley. We haven't heard anything about those 3 jobs yet. But I still think when you look at who I think could be in line, who could be early season candidates for those jobs, when I look at the Berkeley job, I still think Steve DeHart has a great shot at that job. I really do. And then when you look at, but But Berkeley could hire an assistant coach. You know what I mean? Could hire an assistant to take over the head coaching job. Another guy I think to keep an eye on, the big one's at Rochester Adams, that's for sure. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Brad Crichton's name has came up. But you look at Chris Flynn, Bob Lineberger, even possibly Jeff Jason's name has came up. Jason were to leave Waterford Mod, I think that would be a huge significance. Jeff Haney's been mentioned to go over there. I think Haney's another one. That could be an impact when you look at the basketball search. But when you look at those 4 jobs, I think end of the day, I think the best job right now is Rochester Adams, clearly. With the way the Highlanders are constructed, it was a shock that John Hall would leave Adams to go to Almont to coach them. It was kind of a shock. But Adams right now has the best job. I think Adams out of the 4 bunches is the best job. Berkeley, I like their job a lot. But when you look at, but I think being in a division where I think would have helped them a lot, being that gold division, I think would be wonders. Pontiac's an interesting job. I think it's a toxic job in my opinion because once Kelso had problems with the Pontiac school officials, that was why he was out. It's very similar to what happened at Kettering, Waterford Kettering. I think Kelso's in line to get the job at Oak Park, and he might take his son Jalen with him. Now, the transfer rules are a little bit tougher this time around, but I'm curious to see how Kelso's relationship would be with Greg Carter if he were to get the job. Or you could look at Alcatula at Oak Park, or even, forgot the guy's name, but I was talking with Scott Bernstein a couple weeks ago about. But Oak Park really is an interesting job because one year you have Greg Carter, who's the athletic director there, and then of course you got Alcatula, who's a long-time boys basketball coach there, that you might want to keep on staff. Kelso's a guy that he's got a great basketball background. He just doesn't stay where he was. And I've kind of gotten over it. I was all over it. I was very upset, very disappointed with how the process played out with him. I think it's inexcusable what he's doing. But at the end of the day, Kelso's doing what's best for him. And I know he's been going all over the place. He does his basketball camps. But I think if Kelso wanted a good program, he is a guy that is wanting total, complete control. And they wouldn't give it to him at Pontiac. They wouldn't give it to him at Waterford Kettering. And they wouldn't give it to him, and I know they had trouble with Southfield. So, Oak Park's interesting because they have not been stable in 8 years. And I could see Carter going over there. A lot of people can. Pontiac, I can see former coach is really interests me, and it's Lance Davis. Why? Pretty simple. He used to coach there at Pontiac. He had a couple successful stints at Pontiac Central, West Bloomfield. I think Lance Davis is an interesting candidate. But we'll see where Pontiac goes with their boys basketball search. Wow. And then, of course, back to Dan Fife. And Dan Fife's been there for all of them. He's been there for all of them around Clarkson. Clarkson, it's a good thing for them that they're not losing Fife completely. He will make the transition over to this full-time boys basketball coach, which I expect he will. And, just get ready and for the season. I think that's where Clarkson needs to be right now. And Fife decide it's time to take a leave from the AD post and move on. I said Clarkson's one of the best athletic director spots. It is. I think Clarkson, Lake Orion, and Oxford are the three best because you have control of the middle school programs, and you have control of their scheduling, and then you have control of then you have control of and then you have total control of the of how it's operated, basically. So that's my thoughts on Fife, and also my rants on the boys basketball coaching situations going on over there. Another interesting thing that's been occurring has been is the it was approved a couple days ago by the MHSAA that stated that they would look at co-op teams. And that's an interesting one because when you look at the approval of cooperative teams, of course, you look at that situation and how that is approved by, and you look at, basically, it's like you're combining teams. You're just combining them. Now, this was approved the other day based on, but there are some provisions, and it affects 9 sports, so it does affect 9 sports that are involved, and includes softball, baseball, soccer, cheerleading, golf, cross country, tennis, and wrestling. But there is a catch to this. The school, however, cannot exceed 1,000 students. In hockey and lacrosse, they're permitted to combine teams, but as long as it doesn't exceed 3,500 students. So when you look at it here, and they have to be in the same school district. So basically, like at school like Hazel Park and Ferndale cannot merge, and together they're big schools because they're in different school districts. But a team like South Lyon East, they can merge their school districts together, pending if they don't have the lack of participation, like in lacrosse or in softball, cheerleading. But there are some concerns to this. When you look at travel, travel's an interesting one because then you're going to have to travel to the opposing school. And of course, to me, it bothers me is team chemistry because that's a huge concern for me. But it does give the player an opportunity to play right away. I don't think it's going to happen at the big schools, but when you look at it here, this provision, I think, benefits teams from outside of Oakland County, sort of like Detroit, Lansing, Flint, Saginaw, where they have a lot of schools. And this, I think this benefits Detroit a lot more than people think, because you look at what they've gone in Detroit, and it's pretty much simple that they mostly struggle with teams that they struggle with participation there. The reason why they struggle with participation is because not a lot of Detroiters are interested in athletics. They should be. I mean, Flint, same thing. Money problems. You got a minority. You got financial problems there. You got minority problem. I mean, like, you got it's a African American minority there. But, and then of course that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons. But not a lot of people are basically playing, and that's why lack of participation is coming. That's why they form schools. They merge schools. Saginaw, same thing. Lansing, same thing. It gives a player an opportunity to play, even if that school doesn't offer it. Now and it's odd because they're all in the same. I mean, like, you have the Detroit Public School District, where you can merge teams. You have the Flint School District, where you can merge teams. But there is a catch to it, and it cannot exceed 3,500 students. It can't exceed it. No, that's lacrosse, sorry. it can exceed 1,000 students. And they have to be in the school district, and each case is handled by a case-by-case basis. And it has to also have a history of long-standing lack of participation for this to happen. If it doesn't, it don't happen. It's interesting because it's seen as a move to kind of help with participation in sports. But when I look at it here with Detroit, Flint, and Saginaw, I know there's a minority there, African American majority there. Lansing, you look at Lansing, it's kind of like that. It's very, very interesting that Lansing schools would look at that request to merge. But Detroit, Flint, and Saginaw, you look at the lack of participation there, and that's why, and they have the schools that can definitely merge. Saginaw, Arthur Hill can merge if they want to with athletic teams. You look at Flint, you got Flint Northwestern, Flint Southwestern Academy. You've got Flint Carmen Ainsworth. That could be a very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of schools you can merge in. And of course you got Detroit, the whole DPS area, where they've been struggling so much because of their financial problems. Flint, we know what's going on with Flint with their water crisis. Saginaw, we know what's going on with them. They've had at least 2 or 3 opportunities where they thought about merging their school district, merging their high schools, which has come under fierce opposition with Saginaw and Saginaw Arthur Hill. So a lot of personal dynamics, and the MHA given the opportunity to help out, by co-opting these teams, merging these teams together, lack of participation. It benefits those that want it. It benefits those that think that this could help their program and increase their program for those sports. End of the day, it's all about the kids. And the MHA said, I want to see, the more participation they bring in, the better. It'll help them stay out of trouble, and it'll help them achieve their and strive in their high school career. And who knows, go to college and get a great scholarship, and of course be successful in life. So that's interesting. That the MHA would look at that co-op situation. Okay, now we come back. We're going to preview the regional for track and field coming up this weekend around the league. So stay tuned to OAA Now.
We own a Habitat home.
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I pay for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to OAA Now. Sammy Termina here, of course, covering for track and field. The regionals are coming up this week. Of course, the league meets were very interesting. Very, very interesting. But we got all 24 OAA teams looking at the regional preview here. So we're going to go with Region 7 here. Then we take place at North Farmington on Friday, May 20th. Of course, in that regional, you got Berkeley, Groves, Seaholm, Oak Park, Southfield, Lathrop, Farmington, Harrison, North Farmington, Royal Oak, Birmingham Brother Rice, Detroit Renaissance, Detroit University, Detroit Jesuit, Farmington Hills Mercy, Livonia Stevenson, and Redford Thurston are all in that regional at North Farmington. When you look at this region, this is an interesting one because you got, I think, clearly the two best teams, I think, in the state of Michigan are here. And that's both of them, oddly enough, from the same team. And that's Oak Park. When you look at the Knights, they do match up very well. They got depth in the hurdles, sprints, and the distance. That is their strength, is their hurdles, the sprinting, the relays, the distance. If you basically... And I expect Oak Park to score a lot of points here in this regional. The question's going to be is, do they have the field events, especially in the throws? Because when you look at the throws are a big question. And they've developed some throwers, but I don't know if they're right now ready to be in that hold yet. And that's a challenge for Brandon Giles. Of course, he coached at Detroit Mumford for a time. And you look at the Oak Park team, the boys, I don't think there could be anybody that could catch Oak Park. Nobody's going to catch them, the boys. But there are going to be some solid, strong efforts. Now, in the girls, it could be really interesting. But I still think Oak Park's favored. Because when you look at the Knights themselves, they're very talented. They got a lot of Division I recruits on that team. But you got Seaholm, very strong in distances, which I expect them to contend. Roy Oaks had a non-bad year. The Roy Oaks not a bad team. And then you look at Farmington. Of course, I like their distance crew, led by, of course, Maddie Trevison. But you look at other competitors. I think, end of the day, I just don't think that anybody here can compete with the Rays of Oak Park. If Oak Park's a team that really could do, if Oak Park's going to be a team that's going to score a lot of points, going to create a lot of damage, end of the day, it looks like, in the girls, it looks like Farmington and Seaholm might have a shot, but I don't think it's likely that they will have a shot to dethrone the Knights. But it could be very interesting. I think Oak Park's got a great shot at winning this regional easily. And I mean easily. Let's look at Warren Mott, so we won't look at much there, but Troy Athens are in this regional, along with Anchor Bay, Chippewa Valley, Macomb, Dakota, L'Anse Creuse North, Sterling Heights, Stevenson, Utica Ford, Utica, Warren Mott, Sterling Heights, L'Anse Creuse, Port Huron, and Port Huron Northern. I think Macomb, Dakota is favored because of their depth. They've won the Red this year. Utica's another team to keep an eye on. I just don't know if Troy Athens has the ability to compete in this regional. I think they will, but I think they're a middle of the pack team in this regional. Girls, I think Troy's got a great shot, but end of the day, I still think Macomb, Dakota's a very good team. But you got Utica Ford, who's also solid too. But I just don't think Troy Athens are going to give them any type of challenge. Now, Troy had a nice showing in the girls. They shared the MAC White. They shared the white title with Bloomfield Hills. But like I said, I just don't think Troy Athens has a chance in the this regional. A lot of good teams in Macomb County. There are a lot of good teams in that county. Let's look at South Lyon East. This is a regional that I think is going to be very interesting. When you look at this one, you got Avondale, Ferndale, Hazel Park, along with Detroit Country Day, Birmingham Marion, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, Cranbrook Kingswood, Clawson, Detroit Mumford, Detroit Communication Media Arts, Detroit Old Redford, Livonia Clarenceville, Lansing Heights Lampier, Pontiac Notre Dame Preparatory, Redford Union, Southfield Bradford Academy, and South Lyon East. This is interesting because I think Avondale might have a shot here at winning this thing. They do. But I still think the favorite's Orchard Lake St. Mary's because of their athleticism and their talent. I think, end of the day, I just think when you look at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, they got the sprints, they got the hurdles, they got the throws. You got to have that to win a regional like this. And you got to build. And I think between those teams, I think end of the day, I just think Orchard Lake St. Mary's a little bit better than Avondale. Avondale, I'm a little concerned about the distances with them. But when you look at, they have the sprints, they have the hurdles, they have the sprints, they have the hurdles, and they have the throws certainly for sure. End of the day, though, I just think Avondale. I think the lack of distance could hurt them in this regional, and I think it's going to be very interesting, to say the least. It'll be very, very interesting. And then, of course, the girls, I think it's wide open. You got Detroit Country Day, South Lyon East in here, Clawson. Detroit Mumford could be a contender as well. I mean, Detroit Mumford, I know, was badly damaged when Giles departed Detroit Mumford. But they still got athletes. They still got athletes on that team. And I think that they're going to be a huge impact heading into that regional. So, like I said, we'll see what happens there in that regional there. And then, of course, we got Region 9, which is at Orion. You got Orion, Adams, Stony Creek, Rochester, Oxford, Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield, Clarkston, Pontiac, Waterford Kettering, Waterford Mott, Brandon, Holly, Utica Eisenhower, and Romeo. When I look at this regional, it's going to be interesting to say the least. The favorite there, you got to give Adams a favor. You got to give it to Adams. Yeah, Adams ended up losing to Orion in the red in the league meet. But this is a perfect opportunity with points going to be just so hard to get. And then you got Waterford Kettering, who's also very solid. Orion, I consider them the dark horse in the boys' side. Because Sheldon Drake is expected to be back for this meet. And then you have the emergence of Justin Cathers, Logan Shaddai, and the shot put, the way they've been throwing. And then you look at Adams. Adams is a team that really's got a lot of good sprinting. The relays is good. A lot of things they got. Very, very, very balanced. But, Waterford Kettering, same thing. They've had a really nice year as well, and they could do some damage in the relays. I mean, their relays are solid. Very solid. And then you look at a team, Holly's been a team that's really been down a little bit most of the year. You look at Utica Eisenhower. They're not a bad team. Romeo, same thing. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. And then, of course, you got West Bloom. And then, of course, I think the wild card in this is Bloomfield Hills. The way that that Rob Scranton's done a very nice job with that team all year. I like the Blackhawks a lot, what they've done in the boys. But I just think, end of the day, it's going to come down to, it's going to be Adams, Waterford Kettering, and Orion. I really think it's going to be those three teams. I'd be shocked if any of those teams do struggle. But early on, you got to give an advantage to Adams because they've got a lot of depth. They've got a lot of experience. They've been very competitive. They've done very well. But I think Orion's a better team when healthy, and we know Orion's not healthy right now, especially with the injuries they've got with them. But if there's one team I think could definitely overcome the odds, I think it's Lake Orion heading into the home stretch in the regional play. And then, of course, we got the girls. This will be very interesting. Now, a lot of people ask me, Bloomfield Hills the last few years has snuck out and won the regional. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. Because, Bloomfield Hills is solid. They got a very good team. Of course, they're led by their shot putter, Amanda Sape. And discusser Amanda Sape, of course, who played girls basketball for the Blackhawks. But when you look at, people are asking me why Clarkston, Lake Orion don't get a lot of respect. I think Clarkston's going to be the team that's going to be the team to beat. Because you look at the Wolves, their freshman class is solid. Lake Orion's freshman class is solid. Both teams are going to get a lot of points in this meet. But Clarkson and their distance crew is absolutely sick. And I talked to Ian Locke, who executive producer here at ON TV. He said to me that Clarkston is absolutely sick. And I have to agree with him. They are. They have a great talent crew of girls over there. They're getting points everywhere. I'm shocked how they're getting points in the throws. Their sprinters are good. Their relays are good. Their hurdlers are good. And, of course, that's what makes Clarkson solid. What makes them dangerous. They can get points in any of those events and not have to sacrifice anything. they're going to get points. Now, when you look at Lake Orion, same thing. Their freshman class very solid. But this has been a great gradual process for Coach Dave Hudson and his team. I think his best team is not this year, but next year. When you look at a lot of pieces are coming into the fold, great freshman class coming in from middle school. You looking at this team, I think that it could be interesting. You know, I think Lake Orion's a dark horse. Clarkson, Bloomfield Hills. It'll be an interesting regional. There's no doubt about that. But I would have to give the edge to Clarkson based on their experience, based on how many players they can put in there and score points in bunches. But end of the day, it wouldn't surprise me if Orion and Clarkson finished 1-2 in this regional. It really wouldn't. And, you know, I think Bloomfield Hills, you know, possibly with them going up north, I think it's going to be interesting for a couple of these teams. Going up north, going up to the Lake Orion Regional. It's going to be very interesting. Shot put, you know, when you look at that area, Connor Bandel, of course, very good athlete. A lot of people expecting to win the shot put and discus, but he's had some trouble with the pit at Lake Orion. He really has. Pit is very hilly, so it'll be very interesting to see what he does. But we'll see what happens. My top 10 teams on the for track and field before we wrap up. For track and field, very interesting. We'll go girls first. Oak Park, of course, I think is the best team. Clarkston 2, Orion 3, Bloomfield Hills 4. Troy, of course, they shared it with Bloomfield Hills. I got them at 5. West Bloomfield 6. Farmington 7. Adams 8. Royal Oak 9. Seaholm 10. Very interesting. I think Clarkston is. I don't think that this is going to change, but it's been really much an interesting dynamic this year that no Rochester this year on this one. Rochester really has had a down year this year, and it is unfortunate for them that you know, but they've had a down year. Adams, you know, been up and down. Farmington, of course, the Trevisons. West Bloomfield, of course, that shocking upset of Farmington. Bloomfield Hills always solid. Got Oak Park will be up there because they're Division I recruits. Clarkston will be there. Orion there. You got, and of course, Troy's an emerging shocker. I think they're playing well. But it's interesting to see where the top 10 is going to be. And then, of course, in the boys, you got Oak Park 1, Orion 2, Adams 3, Avondale 4, Bloomfield Hills 5, Clarkson 6, Royal Oak 7, Oxford 8, Southfield 9, West Bloomfield 10. Oxford, why they're in there is because they're throwers. West Bloomfield, they're always been solid. Southfield, very speedy. Royal Oak, they're gutty. They're grit. They have a lot of grit. They're gutsy. They're a lot of grit. Clarkston, their big team as always. You got Bloomfield Hills, always solid. Avondale, you know, their emergence, that team this year. Adams, of course, very good as I mentioned. Orion, very good as we mentioned. Oak Park, very good as we mentioned. So this is very interesting when you look at those teams ranked in the top 10. I think it makes a lot of sense right now, this heading into regional play, whom I think right now is the best top track teams in the state of Michigan. Orion, of course, has had a lot of resilient injuries. They've been a resilient team with their depth, and that's a credit to Stan Ford and his staff. But when you look at the regional, if Sheldon Drake is healthy, Lake Orion's got a shot. I think missing Andrew Laurent could really hurt in this regional. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Of course, my final thoughts, of course, like I said, we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on the coaching searches going on at Adams, Pontiac, Oak Park, and Berkeley. Of course, the Southfield situation, we probably much know who the head coaches will be over there. I think it'll be Mike Gaber for the boys, and then for the girls, it'll likely be Michelle Jackson Marshall. So very interesting how the coaching searches were going to come up. So we'll keep an eye on all those coaching searches in boys basketball. We're not too far away from football season, only about 99 days away. from the start. So it's going to be very interesting when football comes around, who could be the top teams in the entire league. So we'll see what happens. Okay, now I'm going to sign off here. So we'll see what happens heading in later into the year. Of course, enjoy the weather. Nice day out. God bless all. And, we'll see what happens. Good night. God bless. Take care, everybody.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.